We are back! Well, kind of. After months of being closed due to this pandemic, movie theaters are finally opening up again around the country, but not yet in California, which is where I am. The only theaters in California that are open are drive-in theaters, like old school drive-in theaters, which are pretty rare. So after all the release delays this movie went through, seriously, this movie was originally gonna come out like 2 years ago, I was more determined than ever to go see it, so I made the 90-minute drive to go down to the Paramount drive-in theater to go see this movie. And all in all, I gotta say, the experience was pretty miserable. I did not take lighting into account, because there are some dark scenes in this movie. I don't mean like emotionally dark, I mean like literally dark, and the projection onto the screen was just not up to it. It got to the point where like some scenes I couldn't even tell what was going on, because the picture was just too dark and the sky was not dark enough to keep up, I don't think. So that on top of the 90-minute drive I had to make, I don't think I'm gonna be going back there. I did manage to understand about 85% of this movie, and I do think that is enough to give a well-informed review, so here we go. The New Mutants. So The New Mutants is the last film in Fox's X-Men movie franchise. You wouldn't know it by the title, but that's what it is. It's a spin-off. It features none of the other characters that have been in any of the other X-Men movies. It centers around a group of 5 kids who are just discovering their mutant powers. They're locked inside this facility that's being run by just one doctor, and that's it. Seriously, there's like no other staff, not even security guards. But these kids don't like it in the facility, so they want to get out. And so here we go with The New Mutants, finally. Now, before I went to go see it, I heard some bad reviews, and I was like, aw, man. I know Dark Phoenix was bad. That was the last core X-Men movie in the franchise. But I was hoping this movie, being the last movie in the entire franchise, it would be good. You know, close this franchise out on a high note. And so when the movie was starting out, the first like half an hour, I was actually enjoying it. I was like, I don't see what people are saying about this. It's actually kind of like my experience with Dark Phoenix. I do like the characters in this movie. The one that gets the most focus is Danny, played by Blue Hunt. She's the one that gets the most backstory and depth, and she's sympathetic enough. Then the one who gets the second most spotlight would be Maisie Williams' character, Rain. And look, I like Maisie Williams enough. I mean, she's super attractive. Her character in Game of Thrones, Arya, was my favorite character in Game of Thrones. But in this movie, there's not much to her character to latch onto. I mean, she has like a couple of defining traits. One of them is a spoiler, and the other is she's very religious, okay? Cool. And then there's Anya Taylor-Joy, who, oh my god, I am still head over heels for her, man, and I'm pretty sure I always will be. And I was really looking forward to seeing her character in this movie, because I knew her character before I saw this movie. Her character is magic. And sure enough, she was pretty cool in the movie. But I mean, she was the bitch character, and by that I mean she was unnecessarily mean to everyone else. Like, she would make these snide comments to characters, and I would be like, that wasn't nice. And what bummed me out here is that the movie never explains why she's such a bitch. I'm actually being serious. The movie never tells you. So you end up not really caring about her character at all. And speaking of characters that we don't really care about, the other 2 dudes in the movie, Sam and Roberto are their characters' names, their characters kind of get lost in the background. I mean, their backstories are explained, kind of, but with a movie that centers around a group of 5 kids, it's gonna end up focusing on some of them more than others. And so I felt like these 2 guys were the others. But I didn't hate any of these characters. I was on their side. I wanted them to escape this facility. I liked them. And this movie had some awesome visual effects. As per usual with Fox X-Men movies, even the bad ones, like Dark Phoenix, had some awesome visual effects too. This movie, man, towards the end when all the shit's going down, I was like, that is so cool looking. I think I said this in my Dark Phoenix review, but I'll say it again here. I could look up the final throwdown scene in this movie on YouTube in a few months and watch it and have fun. But really, those are the 2 positives in this movie. I like the characters and the visual effects were good. The story and the writing, no. Didn't work this time. See, when this movie starts out, you're not supposed to know what these kids' powers are. Okay, well, that's a problem, studios. Because you know, as soon as you release a trailer to a movie called The New Mutants, which is based off a comic book, you know a bunch of people are going to look up those characters online and find out what their powers are. Because that's what I did. I was like, oh, okay, that character does this. That's cool to know. When I did my video about the trailer for this movie, I explained what the powers are. But the way this movie's story is structured, you're not supposed to know. Yeah, pro tip, movie studios and writers, don't do that in your movies. Because people are gonna look it up and it'll ruin the movie for them. Because it did for me. Because I knew what these kids' powers were before the movie started, I was able to predict one of the movie's twists pretty early on. And that was a huge bummer. I mean, granted, I wasn't able to predict all the movie's twists. There were still some things that caught me by surprise, sure. But the thing about their powers, didn't work. But the flip side of that is that I liked seeing their powers. Whenever one of the kids started using their powers, I was always like, ooh, that's cool. I mean, that doesn't add much to the movie merit-wise. I mean, just because something looks cool doesn't make the movie good. And besides, the power twist thing was not the only bad thing about the writing in this movie. Vaguely speaking, some of the relationships that form between these kids, to me, they felt really forced. Like, I'm not gonna say who, but two of these kids, they grow very close, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. In fact, it feels really, not shoehorned, but it feels really in your face. Like the movie was like, hey, these two characters, they're growing really close. See, audience? Yeah, another tip, if you try to force a relationship in a movie, the audience is not going to believe it, because I didn't believe it in this movie. I mean, I liked seeing it because it was sweet, sure, but it didn't really add much to the film. Now, the trailers for this movie kind of showcased a horror vibe, which to me was really intriguing. You know, a horror genre superhero movie. I hadn't really seen too much like that, if anything, so I was looking forward to that, and unfortunately that did not follow through. This movie was not scary at all, really. I mean, there were no real scary elements in the film, at least not until towards the end when those Slender Man looking things started showing up. They were the scariest things in the movie for sure. And they are super cool looking. Totally, I was like, ooh yeah, those guys are freaky looking. Like little kids would get nightmares from looking at those things. I had to touch on how cool everything looks because that's like the big positive here. And then the end comes, it's the big climactic showdown, and at that point I felt like the movie just fell apart. Like it was like, oh hey, I don't know, here's some stuff. We're just gonna have some things happen without any real explanation. I don't know if this movie went under reshoots or not, because recently they said they didn't do any reshoots at all, whereas a few months ago they said they reshot the entire movie, so I don't know what the story is there, but I felt like there were some scenes missing. Because at the end of the movie, things happen without explanation. I'm like, I feel like we should have an explanation to what's going on here. Like, what is that little dragon thing? Why? What? I don't know. Maybe if I could see the entire movie, it would make a little more sense. But honest to God, I doubt that would make the movie better. The score wasn't much either. It was done by composer Mark Snow, and it was fine for what it was, but there were no real main themes I picked up. I was hoping there would be, because it's the New Mutants. It's a new comic book superhero movie, and those are always better with themes. I don't know, if there was one, it was too subtle. So in the end, I had big hopes for this movie. I was looking forward to it for a couple of years, and unfortunately, it let me down. I liked the characters fine enough, and the visual effects, as per usual with the Fox X-Men movies, were awesome. It's a very cool looking movie, from what I could see anyway. But the story is just weak. The relationships between the characters, they felt forced, they didn't work. It felt kind of rushed at times, it being like a 100-minute long movie it's going to. The score felt generic. Just this movie didn't have much of an impact on me. But I feel like you could put this movie on at home while you're doing something else, just to have something cool to look at on a TV screen. So to that point, for the New Mutants, I will say, wait until you can stream this movie online. Yeah, like I said, I don't think I'm gonna be going to that drive-in theater again. So until regular movie theaters open in California again, I might have no other choice but just to wait till movies come out digitally to review them. It really sucks, and I hope that ends up not being the case. I guess we'll see what happens. So the New Mutants, have you seen it? What did you think about it? And what is your favorite movie in Fox's X-Men franchise? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go watch Black Panther and cry.